Oh my goodness, guys, it's me, Avercile here, back with another video. Today, we are gonna continue from where we left off. We talked about what a server is, we talked about what a client is, all that good stuff, and essentially we just discussed how connection over the internet is possible via servers and clients, so we can kind of just fetch information off the internet and essentially communicate with each other and there are certain properties of Roblox's servers that controls what happens in a game, how the game updates itself, different things that clients can do. The rules that apply to the server and the client. That's essentially what we talked about. We didn't really code. I don't think we coded like a single line last episode. So there is rest assured. I don't know if you want to be rest assured, to be honest. I think the theory videos are a little more relaxed. That's why it was a lot shorter, because I don't really have to like explain as much. Like if you forgot like a concept, you can just go back in the video and rewatch it again, you know. But with coding, I do want to like very precisely like explain what's going on. I guess that's probably why last episode was a lot shorter, like way shorter than what I usually post. As you may know, if you've made it to this episode, you've probably seen how horrendous the lengths of my videos are sometimes. I hope it's not annoying. Like I hope the time is well spent and I'm actually like helping you guys out because I don't want to waste your time here. Yeah, so in this episode, we're gonna just pick up where we left off. We're gonna talk about local scripts. So there are two types of scripts for now that are important for us to understand. In fact, I will say there are just two main types of scripts. Okay, there's a third. We're not going to talk about that right now. It's kind of just like a application of the first two, client scripts and server scripts. We know server scripts, right? Server scripts, what we've been using the whole time. Basically, these are scripts that run on the server, change the server, and therefore change for all of the clients. Essentially, this is information where we want to control game logic, how all players experience the game, okay? But we have a second kind of script, and this is called a local script. And we're just going to search it up. And the reason it's like grayed out is because local scripts are not supposed to be here, right? Server script service, right? Go figure. So you might ask the question, where can I put a local script where it will run? Because for instance, let's just get rid of this and let's go to output. And so we have this local script, also called a client script. And if you kind of thought about it, I mean, it should be pretty clear. This is a script that runs exclusively on the client. It's ambiguous, so that means it could run on any client. So these local scripts are going to basically be loaded in on each player's explorer. So they're going to have their own copy of this local script that's going to affect their game, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. If you look at it in that way, it makes a lot more sense. So everyone's going to have this local script, and it's all going to apply to them individually. So yeah, basically, each client is going to get a copy of this. The server is also going to have a copy of it, but it's going to have no use for it. Now, so that's basically what client scripts are used for. They're specifically meant for each client. Everything that runs on this is not going to affect other players. The only way it's going to affect other players is if we send information from a client script to the server. And that's something called a remote event. And we're not going to talk about that right now, okay? We're going to talk about that later. For now, I just want to introduce the idea of what a local script is. So for now, we're just understand that a local script is basically a script that's going to go ahead and go onto each client. So each client is going to have their little local script. So they're going to have, everyone's going to have a copy, and it's going to affect their world, their game. It is information that should only affect that specific player. So that's how you know when you want to use a local script versus a server script. So print hello world, basically this is going to run on every client. So it's going to run for me, it's going to run for Bob when he joins in, but he's going to have his own hello world. It's not going to be the one that we all get from the server this time. It's going to be our hello world, right? Only we can see this. All right, so now you're probably wondering, where exactly do we put this server script, this local script? Because if we go ahead and we play, it's not going to run. Because like you say, print hello world. And also remember that you can't just click run here, because basically what run means is you're just making a server, essentially. You're not creating any clients. So if there's no clients, a client script is not going to run, because client scripts only run for each client. And so if I click run, it basically is going to simulate a server. There are going to be no clients. And so you have to remember, if you're testing client scripts, you have to play. Because it's not going to create a client otherwise. It's only going to create a server. Okay, back to what we were talking about. So server script service, clearly local scripts are not meant to be here. So where do we put this? And I'll tell you the places where we can put them, where they will run. Now, technically, you can store local scripts anywhere, but there are only certain places where they will actually run. So the first location is going to be the starter GUI. So the starter GUI is a service that allows us to execute local scripts. So when we join in, we're going to see hello world, right? So the client, see on the client. So we can see here, this is where we're running it from. So it's a client output message, and it's from our local script, and that shows us the location. And this is the information that was outputted, which is hello world. This is our string. So that is the first location where we can execute local scripts. The second is the starter pack. So you can also run local scripts from the starter pack. And right now, no, you do not need to know what these services do or what they're meant for. You don't need to know what GUI is. You don't need to know what a starter pack is. Sorry, what the starter pack is. You don't need to know what the starter player folder is. Starter player. You should not be doing this. Okay, do not put the script here. It's not going to run if you put it here, okay? This is just a folder that organizes the main two actual folders. Okay, so this is, just think of this as a folder. Starter character scripts. That is one where local scripts will run, okay? And then the second one is starter player scripts, and this will also run local scripts. Now, I'm not going to explain what the difference is between these two. The reason is because I'm going to get into these when necessary. But all you need to know is that you can put local scripts in starter GUI, starter pack, starter character scripts. That is not what I meant to do. Or starter player scripts. And that is where you can put them, okay? What these services are actually for does not matter. Please do not complicate things, okay? That is all I need you to know. What these services do is for later, and we will get into all of this stuff. Now let me give you an example of how local scripts can differ. So, for instance, like I said, local scripts are going to go ahead and copy into each client's Explorer. So these local scripts are going to be unique to each client. So for instance, if I did local random number, sorry, I just had a burp there. Local number, random number equals math dot random, and then we're going to give us a upper and lower, a lower and an upper bound. So basically, I don't know if I introduced this yet. I don't think I did. Maybe I did. Just in case, basically we're creating a variable, and within that variable, we're storing this information here. So this means we want to generate a random number between 1 and 10, inclusive. So it could be 1, it could be 10, and anything in between. And it's going to store that number into this variable. So now if I just say print random number, let me just do that. Whoopsie. Random number, it's going to give us our number, a random number between 1 and 10, and it's just going to print that random number. It's going to put it in the output. On every client, imagine two people join, and they both look at the output. They're going to see different numbers. Well, they could see the same number, but they could also see different numbers. And the reason is because If I did this on a server script, it would get one number, print it, and then everyone would see the same number. But because we're on a client script, it's going to give us a copy for each client. So each client is going to have a unique local script that's going to run for them. And so the random number that outputs is going to be individual for each individual client. So you're only going to see your output message. You're not going to see the other person's, and they're not going to see yours. So each of your numbers are going to be unique. Okay, that's the point I'm trying to make. For instance, if I did local say my name equals, all right, so we got to actually introduce, a very common object reference, and basically there is a special reference that we can do with only local scripts. It's unique to local scripts. Well, I mean, technically it is. I mean, you can use them in something called a module script, but that only works if you're running the module on it. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about this. Local scripts have this special reference that you can't do on server scripts. You cannot do this. You can only do this on local scripts. So basically we do game.players. So we're referencing this service right here. Dot local player, the player that the local script is running for. So basically Roblox made it so that in a local script, you can actually reference the player who that local script is running for, essentially. So you have your local script in your Explorer, and therefore that local player is going to be your player object. So you go into players, it's going to reference your player object. You can only do this on client scripts. The reason is because on server scripts, there is no such thing as a local player, because from the server's perspective, it's just a list of players. But if it's your local script that's running for each individual client, we can actually specify that specific player in your player's say my name. So when we play this game, don't worry about the error that's about to occur here, but when we play and we go to the player service and we go to this player, we have this information. It's called your data. So the data, well, I mean, it's just properties essentially, but this is just a section called data. And under this section, we're gonna have this property called name, and beside it is gonna be that player object's name, and it just happens to be mine. So when we go and we say print, sorry, I should actually just do this. Hold up. Print player dot name. What this means is game.players.localPlayer. Local player special. It's a special reference to your player object, right? For that specific client's player object. And then within that player object, we have a property, so dot name, and that property is called name. And then we have a value for that name, which is your username. So print player dot name. And when we run, we should get our username. Man eating plant 123. That's super cool. So now you can see, I mean, if you have thought a little bit about it, you're going to realize that if for each player, they're going to have their own unique output message with their name. And that is the difference between a local script and a server script. That is the difference. I don't know what that is. And I think I referenced this earlier, but yes, there is a way to communicate from the client to the server and therefore to all the other clients. So you can give clients special access to do things that ordinarily they couldn't do. And that's via something called a remote event. For now, I want you to just understand what I'm saying here. Okay, so let's say you learn instance. I taught this in the beginner series. So you say local part equals instance.new part. We're going to say part dot parent equals workspace. So we're creating a part instance, and then we have to give it a parent, because obviously when we create it, it's not going to automatically have a parent. Like the game doesn't just know magically that it's like, oh, I just guessed you wanted it in the workspace. No, it doesn't work like that. Okay. You have to actually assign it. Okay. Because the script isn't just going to be playing guess games with you. Okay. You have to specify. Otherwise, it's not going to exist anywhere where anyone can see it. It's only going to exist. Anyways, you get what I mean. Okay. So when we click play, we're going to have a part for every client. It's going to be probably under here, I'm assuming. Right here, yeah, because that's the origin point. If you don't set a position, the default position is the origin, okay? Well, it probably moved a little bit because it's not anchored. Yeah, so basically the default position is origin point, so you have to also assign a position. You can assign a color, a size, all the properties, right? We talked about this. So yeah, and if you go on the server, can you guess if it's going to be there? No, it's not going to be there. Why? Because we're running it on a local script. This information is only going to apply to each client. Okay, so every client is going to have a unique part. Well, we moved it on the server, so it should move on the client. They're going to have their own unique part. And if I delete mine, some guy over there, his part's still going to be there. So everyone's going to have a unique part that only they can see. It's only in their Explorer. And that is the essence of a client script, a local script. You can do a lot of the same things you can do in a server script, but there are some things that you shouldn't do and can't do in client script. So for instance, if you want to have a speed pad and you want to give a player who steps on it, you want to give them speed. Logically, you would say, well, yeah, I want that to be controlled by a server script because that's talking about the game logic. So you wouldn't be writing, for instance, if you had a speed pad, you wouldn't do that in a local script, right? You wouldn't just, that wouldn't make sense. It's not unique to each client. Changing a person's speed is something that should be controlled by the server because it is something that affects everybody. And therefore, if it affects everybody, like if you want to change somebody's speed, that logic should all be controlled by the server. So there are certain things that you need to just reason, like should this be done on the server or on the client? And that partly comes with experience. You just have to figure your way out, like understanding when do I use a client script, when do I use a server script. You just got to practice. If you need to ask a question, it's fine to ask, right? I have a Discord server. You can join that, ask questions if you're confused about like, what do I use? Why isn't this working? Totally okay. Go ahead and just ask around. People will help you out. There's some really cool people on the server. But yeah, that's the essence of a local script. I mean, it runs, it basically copies over to each client's Explorer. You do have a copy on the server, but the server does not utilize it because it's not a server script, it's a client script. It runs on the client. There are specific locations where you can put client scripts. So starter GUI, starter pack, and these two folders here, your starter character scripts and your starter player scripts. We're going to get to these two at some point. These are really important folders. So are these two, obviously, but we'll get to all that stuff eventually. But basically, just know that those 4 folders, 1, 2, 3, 4, are going to be the folders that execute local scripts. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, a little bit of a shorter one as well. It'll probably be a little bit longer next time because I will be introducing new concepts. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to be doing next episode. I will figure that out. But yeah, that's what a local script is. That's where you can use a local script. The difference between local scripts and server scripts. And a vague, like, I don't need you to understand exactly when you need to use the local script versus when you need to use the server script. Okay, I don't expect you to know that. As we progress through the series, it will become a little clearer, like when do I gotta use a local script, right? Or when do I use a server script? All I need you to know is like kind of a rough idea of the difference between them, what their functions are. There's also an important there's an important reference object that is exclusive to local scripts, and it's game.players.localPlayer. This is exclusive to local scripts, and it basically just returns that specific player's player object. Because once again, local scripts run exclusively. Local scripts are going to copy to everyone's Explorer, and therefore when they run, they're going to run keeping in mind whose Explorer they are in. I hope that made sense. But yeah, so that's all I'm going to cover for today when it comes to local scripts. A lot of good stuff we're going to dive into in local scripts, like a remote events coming very soon, I'm assuming. I'm not sure if it's going to be next episode. We'll see. Um, but yeah, that's going to be about it, guys. I hope that helped you out. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Peace.